Hello there, everyone, and a very happy Thursday to you all. Welcome to another Arden Live. I am absolutely delighted to be here with you today, and I'm so glad that you are joining us. As you're joining us, if you're joining us live, please do feel free to pop a comment and wave, if you will, in the comments. We love to see where people are watching us from, and we love to know that you are here with us. So a big hello to everyone who is joining. This is so much fun, and I'm really looking forward to hanging out with you today. So today we've got some really fun project ideas and some tips and some techniques. I'm going to be focusing on the Been There collection from Arden, which is absolutely gorgeous, and one of my very favorites. Before I do that, though, I want to give a little heads up, a little reminder on the Arden giveaway from not last week, but the week before, the live that we did focused on the Wicked Woods collection, which is also beautiful. There is the chance for a giveaway, and all you need to do is create an album page using any of your Arden supplies that you already have in your stash. That could be the Been There collection, that could be well, it could be, let's see, what were some of the other ones? Garden Chronicles would be one that you could do. Anything that is focused on some of the techniques that we were going over last time. So I'll show you the album page that we were looking at last time. Forgive the glare of the light on the photo. I'll angle it and maybe you can see it a bit better. So we were talking about layering decoupage papers, layering rub-ons, layering some of our different pattern papers together. So any of the layering techniques and working in a woodland inspired album page. So if you can create an album page, post it up on the Arden Facebook group by the end of this month, which is coming up pretty soon. So by August 31st. And a winner will be chosen at random on September 1st and notified, and that person will win 50 pounds worth of Wicked Woods collection. That's 50 pounds currency, not 50 like weight pounds. So British pounds currency, which you would have so much fun with that collection. And it is a limited edition collection as well. And actually, let me show you this again. I used all of those products for this album page, for the pattern papers in the background, the rub-ons, and the decoupage paper all in here. So this is all from Wicked Woods. If you like doing Halloween themed projects, cards, and scrapbook pages, this collection is for you. If you like autumn themed projects as much as I do, then this collection is also for you. So just a little reminder on that and more details. I know Fiona is going to post in our comments and also already on the Arden Facebook page. So now that we've talked about that a little bit, I'm going to show you the projects that I want to share with you today. So here is our scrapbook page, and I also have a card project to show you today. Now, we'll talk about the various things that both of these have in common. One big thing is that they're using the Been There collection. So what I'm going to do is swap down my camera so that we can take a closer look here at both of the projects and also some of the pattern papers that I'm using, as well as some of the techniques that we'll get into when we start doing our demo. So first of all, again, scrapbook page and the card, both of them using papers and supplies from the Been There collection from Arden. Got my pattern papers, I've got some rub-ons on here, I've also got some ephemera pieces, and then over here some laser cut details, as well as PET tape accents, borders, and smaller pieces as well. So let's first start out with our album page, because one thing I do want to highlight here is not only the pattern papers that I'm using and how to kind of make the most of the papers and supplies you have on hand by growing, using my air quotes, by growing your papers to create a larger page. But then also we're going to get into some stenciling techniques here too. So using ink as well as a texture medium. So let's start out with our album page. First of all, I'll set my card over here. And I really like doing 8x8 pages. I love the size of a 12x12 page. Sometimes it's a little bit bigger than what I need. A 4x4 page is sometimes a bit too small. So like Goldilocks, I like to be right in the middle with an 8x8. Also because I have a 9x9 album, and I just find that it works really nicely for single page spreads as well as double page spreads. So the pages where the book opens and they're facing towards each other. So I really like to be able to incorporate some smaller elements, some smaller layouts on my page. So for this, what I like to do is either trim down a 12x12 sheet to be 8x8, or if you're someone like me and you love the 6x8 pattern papers, you can absolutely use these to grow your page. So I'm going to flip this open here. One tricky thing with some of the patterned papers, if they are not totally square, is that you've got an orientation that is going one way. So the pattern, like for example, with the text, you wouldn't really be able to put it this way if your album page is going horizontally rather than vertically. So in that case, what you can do is simply take two of your papers and trim them down, overlap them, and combine them to create your background. So this is a really simple way of creating the page size that you want. So what I'm going to do here is start with my 8x8 piece of cardstock. And this is a walnut cardstock. This is Arden cardstock, which you can't really see it on the camera, unfortunately. One side is smooth. The other side has I call it a very gentle texture. It's almost like a linen sort of texture to it. You can't see it very well, but you can definitely feel it. It's subtle though, which means that it's not really bumpy. If you know what I mean, if there's some textured papers and cardstocks out there that are quite bumpy, and it can make it a little bit difficult to work with sometimes because things don't glue, they don't stay flat. This has some really nice texture on it that you can actually feel. Everything glues on there really beautifully though, so it's very easy to work with. And so what I've done is I'm going to grab two of these sheets of paper from the 6x8 collection. Two that I think are just absolutely gorgeous. Now, the Been There collection has papers that are perfect for vacations, perfect for travel, perfect for holidays, but they're not limited to those types of pages. As you can see here, you could use these for lots of different themes and occasions, which I love about this. The collection does have paired papers, so suggestions, and you can see them here on the front. But what's really nice about this colorway is that you can combine lots of these outside of their sort of designated partners. So you could take, for example, this plaid here, it goes beautifully with this design, but it could also go really nicely with any of these. So I'll flip through kind of what I still have left in this set. I really picked through it quite a lot. I love it. I think the designs are just gorgeous. And of course, they're double-sided. You've got two sheets of each, and then you've also got these kiss cut elements here in the back too. So really useful. Everything is coordinated to go along together. So I've pulled out two of these sheets and I've trimmed them down slightly smaller height-wise than my 8x8 background piece. And I really like working with the cardstock as my foundation of my page. So what I can do from here, or actually what I've done, simply stack the two of them together and trim off the same amount from each sheet. So both of these are about 7 3/4 inches tall. And then what you'll do is figure out how you want them to go on your page. So I could put them slightly overlapping like so. I've got this gorgeous floral design here. Or I could decide to have the dots on top, taking up more of this space. Now, if I changed my mind, of course, you can Try the other side of these papers. These go really nicely together as well. You can even fold over a corner and incorporate that. So what I like to do is choose one of the patterns to be slightly more dominant than the other. So this is the one I'm going to go with because I absolutely love this design. And I'm going to say, okay, I want this to go over on this side. And then I'm going to have a little bit, maybe just a couple of inches of the dot showing over here. So here I can play with my proportions. I can have more of the dot showing. I could have it be half and half. And I'm going to kind of slide this over here and say that I want about this much of the dot. Now, if you're a paper person, you're thinking, are you going to cover up all of this section here? No, of course not. I'm going to cut that away or tear it away. So I could either have a straight edge like this, or I could just tear a portion of this dot paper. And I can tear this to have that white core showing, or I could tear it the other way so that I don't have the white core showing. So either way, either option, the white can give you a nice little bit of definition between those two designs. So that's also nice. Or you could do some inking to go along the edges on there too. I'm just going to position this here like so. And then bringing in my photo. Now, one thing I like about an 8x8 page is that it just seems like the right size for a 4x6 inch photo, which is what I've got here as my main photograph. So I'm going to bring in this photo. And when I'm choosing my papers to go with my photos, I'm really looking at the colors in the photograph. So this one, for example, a beach photo, I've got lots of sand. So the sand, the brown sand color in my daughter's clothing with the blue hat and then her gray sweater and blue boots on there. So all of those colors are going really nicely, especially with the colors in this patterned paper here. And of course, that's going to coordinate really nicely if I wanted to do a double page spread. Same photos or same series of photos, and then also the same color combinations on there too. One thing I do want to point out is with your photos, if I'm to simply place the photo onto this gorgeous patterned paper, it can be a little tricky to see the contrast between the colors in the photo and the colors in the pattern in the background paper. That's especially true, I think, for the dot paper. It really does kind of compete there. So what I would recommend, what I also like to do with any of my photographs, is to grab some solid cardstock, trim it down to be a photo mat. Let me get my parts and pieces sorted here. So if we say we're going to glue this down, add this on here, and I think you can see with that white photo mat, just like before putting a picture or a photo or a painting on your wall, if you have wallpaper, that you would put it into a frame. So this is giving me a nice frame, a nice little bit of definition between the elements in my photo and the elements in my background paper. So you could do a single mat, and I'm just using classic white cardstock here. You could also go and pick up any of the colors in the background paper too. Maybe some of this sort of serge blue in here would be really pretty. Any of the browns would be nice as well. And then once I've got my photo down in here, I can start adding in some of my embellishments. And here's where we can really have a lot of fun with some of our accent pieces that we may have in our stash already. So for example, here, I've got some rub-ons going on top of this patterned paper. I've also got some more rub-ons up over here. I have some PET tape. Now, the PET tape is actually from the Hidden Creek collection, not from the Been There set. So you can mix and match in between those. I've got some laser cut embellishments in here as well. I also have my stenciling there too. So take a look at this little embellishment here. This is actually from one of the sheets in the 6x8 pack. And it's all of these really cool pockets. And these are kiss cut, so they're going to pop right out of the backing sheet. And you get 2 sheets of these, which is great. And then all you do is kind of pop out this little middle piece in here. And you have a really cool little envelope that you can tuck lots of memorabilia or even some small journaling pieces right inside. If you are a card maker, these are a lot of fun for card focals or for the inside of your card too. So that's what I've got here. You can see this little guy here. And I've got some tags that I have tucked right inside there with some journaling written on top. But I've also got some stenciling going on here too. So let's talk about our stencil. And a hello to everybody who has joined as I've been talking. It's wonderful to see everybody here. So a big hello to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Alrighty, so the stencil that I'm working with is called This Way, and it's got multiple patterns on it. I love a stencil that has a lot of different designs on it because I think it really adds to the value of it. Stencils are one of those tools, personally, I find, that they are inexpensive, which is great, but they last a really long time. And especially when you have a design like this that's so versatile, treat your stencil well and you will have it for years and years and years. So we've got the 4 designs on here. And one thing I want to point out with the stencil, because there's no script on here, your stencil can go this way. You can also use this going the other way. So depending on which direction you want those arrows to go, you can decide which side you're using. And I know that sounds like a really obvious thing now that we're looking at it, but I know that it can be really easy to get stuck in looking at one specific product and how it's normally used and then going with that every single time. So feel free to flip this over. You can, of course, have the arrows pointing up, they can point down, they can point in all kinds of different directions. You can use all of these together. You can use different elements of it. You can also, and here's a tip that I learned from another designer friend, you can also grab a pair of scissors and cut your stencil apart if you want to have these as separate entities. She shocked me when she said that, but she was like, yeah, it's your stencil. Once you own it, you can cut it apart if it makes it easier to kind of mask things off. What I really like about this too is that you've got some uneven designs in here. So like with the dots are one of my favorites. Now, with our album page, I've done some stenciling, you can see with the arrows, using both an inking technique and texture paste technique. So let's start with our inking technique, and then we'll move up to the stencil paste or the texture paste technique. So let's see, I'll grab this patterned paper, which has a really nice kind of subtle design here. And I'm just going to pop my stencil down. Now, you can use lots of different inks for this technique. I recommend a dye-based ink because it will go really nicely through the stencil. And you do need to have a blending brush. So I've got my blending brush on hand, and I'm going to use my Muddy Boots dye-based ink for this. This is one from Hunky Dory. What I like about these is that the ink pad is raised up. Let's see if we can see this better. The ink pad is raised up from the plastic base, which means that it's really easy to get that, pick up that ink color onto your blending brush. Now the blending brush, these are the kind that I use. I've got them in lots of different sizes, and I usually use one per color grouping. So this one I would use for my dark colors, and then I have other ones, other brushes that I would use if I was stenciling, for example, with yellow or something lighter. So what I'll do is pop this down. I'm gonna go with my, let's go with these little arrows here. In terms of masking off your other colors or your other patterns, you can, of course, use some sticky notes. That can also work to block things off and then also to sort of hold things in place. For larger areas here, Sometimes I'll just grab a piece of scrap paper, kind of tack that down like so, just to make sure that you're not accidentally getting some of the other designs if you're trying to isolate out one certain area of your stencil. You can tape the whole thing down if that makes you feel better, or if you want it really secure. Sometimes I just hold it down and hope that I'm lucky. Okay, I'm going to pick up some of this color onto my brush. And holding this down, I'm going to start with a light touch and a gentle circular motion here. Now, the trick with stencils is that you kind of don't know. You have to trust the process until you lift off that stencil to make sure that you've got all the colors in there. And that's the trick when you tape the whole thing down. If I have it sort of loosely tacked down, I can kind of lift this up and go, okay, yeah, I'm on the right track. And if I need to go back and add some more ink on here, I can do that. Now, the other nice thing that you can do, let's keep that all in place where it is, you can also, with your inks, blend out into another color. So I'm going to grab the khaki, same brush, and then overlapping from the Muddy Boots, which is a kind of, well, muddy brown color, I'm going to take the khaki, overlap that, and then blend it into the rest of the design. And we'll see how we go from there. Okay. Lift this off, and there you can see I've got those nice little arrows on there going from the brown and blending into the lighter green. And you can do this with lots of different color combinations too. So I've got some quite dark colors here to go with the darker colors on the pattern paper, but you could do some really fun kind of rainbow effects or something with pastel colors too. Now, cleaning your stencil, really easy to do. You can take a baby wipe and clean that off. You can also rinse it off with some water at the kitchen sink. Ink, especially dye-based ink, you do kind of want to clean it off pretty quickly, if only because it will sit on top of the stencil, which means that the next time you pick this up, you may end up with it on your hands or on another part of your project. So usually what I'll do is kind of dab it off as I go along and then give it a nice good clean at the end of my crafting session. So that is the inking technique, super simple to do. And again, you can play with your different ink colors and it will look beautiful on your patterned or your solid cardstocks too. Now, what else can you do with your stencil? Lots and lots of different things. You can also add in some texture paste. So bring this in again, and you can see over here on this side, that same arrow pattern. So I've got the arrows with ink on my little envelope, and then I've got this over here with some texture paste, which gives me some dimension. And this is really nice. This is also what I put onto my card project. Now, with the texture paste, let's talk a little bit about this. This is a fine grade texture paste that I picked up at my local craft store. My very favorite texture paste is one from Paper Artsy called Grunge Paste. And I thought I had a full jar, and it turned out I had no jar. So I had to nip out to my craft store and pick this up. And this is working pretty well. What you'll want to make sure when you choose your texture paste is that you're getting something that has some body to it. Meaning that when I take, for example, my palette knife, you see how that's hanging on to that palette knife. It's not dripping off. If it's really watery or really drippy, it will go through the stencil and it will just sort of seep underneath and it won't give you the effect that you want. You could get a cool effect, but it may not be the effect that you want. So a texture paste that's got some body to it is what you're going to want to have on hand. And yeah, this is the fine grain, excuse me. Some texture pastes will have a really chunky body to them. Some of them are very, very textured. So just be sure to read the label on your jar before you buy it. Okay, so let's take a look here. This area is really white. So is this. Let's see. I'm going to grab another piece that has some darker design on here. And let's go with our circles. Let's position the circles this way just to see what this will look like. Okay, again, so I'm going to position this in place, make sure it's where I want it to go. Now, with the texture paste, I do want to make sure it's not going to go sliding around here. So I'm going to stick this down with my Post-its. Again, you have a little bit more control, I think, or I feel, when you're working with the texture paste to not go into another pattern, but we'll block this off anyway. Okay, so I've got that all fairly well secured down in here. And then I'm going to grab my texture paste, and here's where I can make my choice. I can either use a tool like a palette knife. This is a palette knife. And a palette knife is meant for lots of different painting techniques, but you can also use it to apply any kind of medium. So you can use your palette knife. You can also use your finger. I'm going to show you both ways. My preference is to use my finger. So you can decide. If you have a nicer manicure than I do, you may want to go with the texture paste on the palette knife. So the choice is yours. Okay, so I've got my texture paste on the back of the palette knife, and I'm just going to scrape this on here. You can start with a good amount. I wouldn't glob it on, but you don't want it to go on too thin. Okay, so pick up a little bit more and sort of work this out like so. Now, you can, as I mentioned, use your finger for this. I find that I have a little bit more control when I'm using my finger, and I just sort of scrummel this in to the stencil. Again, if you have a really nice manicure, really nicely done nails, your texture paste may hang on to your nails, so just forewarning. So I kind of work this in here like so. And the really important thing, okay, clean my finger first. The really important thing with your texture paste, as with all of your mediums, you want to clean things off of your tools, and you want to make sure that your lid is on securely. Otherwise, the stuff, it does tend to dry really quickly, which is great for your project, but not great when you go back to get some more paste out of that jar and you find that it's the lid wasn't on tightly enough. Okay, and then the other important thing you want to do is lift this gently. You're going to want to lift it and not slide it. So instead of pulling that away, you want to just lift this gently, and there you go. I love combining these designs. I think this right here would make for a really cool portion of a background page or a part of a card background too. And again, those dots, they're just so cool. I love the variety of the sizes and the patterning on here. So super simple to do with that. So you can do this directly onto your patterned paper. You can also do this onto patterned paper that has a rub-on already applied to it. So the Been There collection also has a coordinating set of rub-ons, and here you can see them. I use these quite a lot. I don't have very many left. These two are my absolute favorites, so that's what I've applied on here, along with one of these designs that's overlapping. And you've also got some of the map portions over here. This is what I used on my album page as well, so put those right onto the patterned paper. So let's grab the stencil again. And I'm just going to dab this off quickly. And then we can come back and give a little bit of stenciling. Oh, that's actually quite cool. I don't know if you can see that. It's on my scrap paper now. Let's add some of these dots right overlapping our arrow rub-on here. And I'm going to do this with my finger again. And I'll just hold this down and apply this through here. Now, also with these designs, because they are fragments and not really like an all over design pattern, well, actually, even if they were an all over design pattern, you can use all of the pattern. You can also use just a portion of it. So for example, like this. So this is going to go right over that rub-on. Now the cool thing here, the rub-on is a non-porous surface. So meaning that unlike pattern paper, which will absorb the texture paste and any watery medium you put onto it, the rub-ons are going to act as a bit more of a resist, which means that you need to let this dry. And it also means that if you think, oh, I've gone a little bit too far over, or I made a mistake, or I'm not happy with this at all, you can also wipe that off. So if you think, oh, you know what, I really didn't want that one last dot on there, let's just come in with a palette knife and pop that off, and then ta-da, you're done. So you can have a little bit more flexibility, I would say, on this too. So that's with the rub-on. So it's pattern paper, rub-on, and then the texture paste stenciling on top. And that is what I have done on this part of the page. There's also some PET tape underneath here too. And if I angle this, you may be able to see that there's a little bit of a glare. Stenciling with texture paste on top of the PET tape can be done. I will say it was a little trickier than with the rub-ons and definitely trickier than with the pattern paper, but it can be done. It also, because the PET tape is also non-porous and quite slick, you can wipe it off if you want to. So you do have some more forgivability on there as well. Now here's one piece where I've got my pattern paper, I've got my rub-ons on here, and then I've done my stenciling. Again, coming back with the ink pads, because this is white texture paste, if you want, you can pick up a little color and you can add some color right on top of that texture paste. A little or a lot. Just depends on what you want to do. So you can really change the color of that bright white texture paste. If you're wondering, well, can I mix some kind of color with the paste before I apply it to my project? Well, the answer is yes, and maybe I wouldn't, depending on what you're going for. So when you add any kind of watery medium, like a liquid ink or a paint, to a texture paste, first thing I would do if you're deciding to do this, scoop out some of the texture paste and put it onto your palette or your craft sheet. Add in your watery medium a little bit at a time, because the watery medium will change the buildup or the body of the texture paste, and it can make it a lot more watery than what you might want. So just keep that in mind. You can add some of that color afterwards. So for example, here's some of the arrows that I did on this background piece. And if I want to kind of make them pop out from the background, again, adding a little bit of texture and color on here, so that can pop out there as well. Angle that a little bit. And then another last technique, well, not the last technique that you can do, but one of the last techniques that I will show you is sanding. So I did this bit of stenciling on here, and it's not perfect. It's not terrible, but it's not exactly what I wanted it to be. And I can see a couple of little areas where it wasn't going perfectly. So what I would do, or what I could do, grab an emery board, or if you have a sanding tool, maybe you have one that's a little bit sturdier than this, is to, let's see, I'm going to put something underneath here, is to sand off some of the texture paste. This will make the image not quite as sharp. It'll soften it, and it will also give you some really cool texture. Okay, we're gonna brush that away there too. So now I've kind of smoothed this back. It's almost smoothed so far back that it is even with the pattern paper. So that's with a simple emery board. So if you find like, oh, you know what, that wasn't perfect, maybe I've decided not to use it at all, before you toss it out, see if that technique makes you like it a little bit more. It did for me. In fact, I did this piece and I looked at it after I had finished it and I thought, oh, that's terrible. It just looks awful. And then today I was like, well, it's not that bad. So sometimes, you know, you make a mistake or what you think is a mistake, and then you come back to look at your card or your stamped image or your project later, and it just doesn't look as terribly bad as you thought it had the first time around. So those are some quick and easy ways that you can put that stencil to use. We haven't even talked about reverse stenciling, which is another technique that I want to show you for a future live. But let's come back to our project here and again, talk a little bit about the overall design. So I've got my 2 pattern papers here. You can see the rub-on here, which is one of these beautiful map designs. And I've got that on top of my patterned paper. I love combining the 2 of those. I've got some of this PET tape, and I need to show you this because this stuff is so cool. Let's see. I'm looking for something neutral that I can show you. This is just a little snippet of the design. Now, this is an acetate tape, and all you do is pull off that backing sheet, and you've got this gorgeous sticker border or portion that you can use. You can also cut out certain sections of this as well, and that's what I did here. I've snipped off a part of the tape that has the expedition on here, and then I've also just cut out the circle with the postmark on there. So I've got, again, some of the stenciling. I've got my little envelope with some of my journaling tucked in here. I've also got some laser cuts on here as well. And I need to show you this too, because I just think these are so gorgeous. And you've got 2 designs, 1 sheet each of these punch out images. Punch out sounds a little bit like it's for kids. They are laser cut, so they pop right out of that backing sheet, but they're absolutely gorgeous. Some are very delicate, like the foliage, and some you've got like the tickets and the postmarks and all kinds of really cool imagery on here. And I will point out too, especially with this section up here at the top, I think all of these go beautifully for travel themed projects. But I also think that this would look really nice in any kind of greeting card, especially if you're looking for something that is maybe for a graduate or somebody who is moving, bon voyage card, that kind of thing. These will work really nicely too. Alrighty, so what else do I want to show you? There's more, I know. Let's see here. We've got the PET tape, which I keep trying to call pet tape. We've done the stencil. We've got our stenciling with the ink as well as with our texture paste. Let's take a look at the card project. Now, I'm also using some of that gorgeous patterned background paper. Now, in this case, I've also cut apart some of that PET tape, just little isolated little images on here. We've got some stenciling. I've got one of the laser cuts overlapping the stenciling on here. And then I've got a really nice little collage with the Wandermore and the postmark on here too. So really simple, easy ways to add some texture and some design to your cards and to your scrapbook pages. So let's see, anything else that we've got here? Yes, I do have one more thing that I want to share with you, and that is for our next live that we're going to be doing together. And this is coming up September 10th. We're going to be playing with Christmas cheer, the Christmas cheer collection. And we're going to be building on some of the techniques that we've looked at already. So you probably notice I've got my 8x8 page here. I've got my patterned papers, 2 of them together. We're also going to be talking about ways to add in some additional elements, especially when you're looking at a smaller size page. So in this case, if you have lots of photos of your cat at Christmas time, and why wouldn't you, you can tuck them inside one of these really cool little book elements here. And we'll also look at some pockets, maybe some ways that you can add small gifts, maybe like a gift card or money gift for a Christmas card. So again, I'm going to show you the album page. We'll step through this. You guys will be pros by then in terms of cutting down your paper to make for an 8x8 layout. And then we'll also be incorporating those same techniques with a card project, because I think many of us are probably getting into Christmas card making as well. So we're looking ahead to the next season. It's almost September. I can't believe it. So looking ahead for card making and album pages. So one more quick reminder as well. Don't forget, there's still time to take part in the giveaway to win 50 pounds, 50 currency pounds worth of Wicked Wood supplies, and just create your woodland themed or woodland inspired layout using maybe 1 or 2 or all of the techniques from a layout like the one that I showed you last time with the layering with your rub-ons as well as the decoupage papers. You can use any of your Arden supplies that you have already on hand and post that page into the Arden Facebook group, and a winner will be chosen at random on the 1st of September. So thank you so much for joining me today. I had a wonderful time. We really did a speed round through some of those stenciling techniques, but I hope it gives you a little bit of inspiration for putting those stencils and your patterned papers to use. I will see you again in 2 weeks' time. Until then, happy crafting, and do take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.